What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So for this horror news update, as you can see, this is literally just hot off the presses. Just got published 8 minutes ago, and as you can see from the headline, this might be some bad news for some of you, good news for others. Me, I'm a little impartial. I'll explain why once we get into some of these details. But looking at the headline here, Saw series shocker. Is it game over for Saw 11? So let's jump into the details of this article before I give my opinions and thoughts, again, where I stand on the entire Saw franchise. 7 installments, a soft reboot, a spin-off, an in-between-quel. After 2 decades, 10 films, and over $1 billion gross worldwide, Saw remains one of horror's most popular and enduring franchises. Unfortunately, the series' iconic villain Jigsaw may have already set his last trap, according to an anonymous source BD has verified as being close to the production of its newest sequel. Quote, "It's totally dead," the source tells us. Continuing the quote, "It's a 100% over, almost a year now." So we have this post here that, as you can see, when it was, this says 7 minutes ago, the game continues 9/27/24. But I imagine this is just a screen grab from an old post, because again, we're well past September 27th, 2024. Let's go down a bit more. After the commercial and critical success of 2023 Saw 10, Lionsgate announced Saw 11 with a teaser image and a September 27, 2024 release date, which is the one we just saw above. Not long after, Saw 10 director and franchise veteran Kevin Greutert was revealed as the upcoming sequel's director, with previous series scribes Patrick Melton and Marcus Dunstan on scripting duties. In addition, Saw stars Tobin Bell, Shawnee Smith, and Kostas Mandler were to return to their roles for this outing. However, the release date was eventually pushed back by a year in the spring of 2024, placing its new release date at September 26, 2025. So what happened? According to the source, quote, "Everything went sideways in January 2024. The producers started fighting. While one producer attempted to plow forward with the film, the other put up roadblocks, stifling Saw 11's production." But what about Lionsgate? Surely the company that Saw helped build would have stepped in to steer its lucrative ship back on course. Our source suggests, quote, "Lionsgate didn't have anyone to smooth over the disagreement." As it stands, the series still has a number of dangling plot strands left to be tied up. With Saw 11 effectively canceled, so too is the franchise, robbing its fans and creators of a proper ending. What becomes of the series after this? The insider notes that the franchise might sell somewhere else, but it will likely start over if so. In the end, Jigsaw was thwarted not by cancer or a circular saw to the throat, but a persistent plague to creativity and filmmaking. As the source concludes, quote, "Greed and ego won." Sound off in the comments below, so on and so forth. So then we just have the in caps all here, game over, and then this scene here, which we all know is an iconic scene from the first film. So my opinions on this, I've talked offline about this franchise to many other people in the community, and honestly, I'm impartial. I'm not necessarily sad to see this one end. I mean, again, as the article started off, let's just go back to the beginning of the article. 7 installments, a soft reboot, a spinoff, and an in-between, and what they're calling an in-between-quel. So, and this was going to be the 11th film. I'm okay this one, even if it would have been made, I would have wanted it to be the last one in the franchise, and then let the franchise sit dormant, let it, settle on the shelf for several years, and if you want to come back and try to do something different under the Saw umbrella, fine. But after the first few Saw films, of course the first one was iconic. No one had expected it to be what it was, and no one expected it to be as popular as it was, and then ultimately kick off such a successful franchise. I mean, there's no denying these films make money. I mean, as it says in there, over $1 billion made by this franchise. So yeah, it's a moneymaker. But for me as a fan, as a horror fan, I'm happy to see this one go. Even as I've said time and time again, when it comes to franchises that just have endless sequels, and don't get me wrong, I point the finger at the Halloween franchise, which is I have a Halloween picture behind me. Michael Myers is my favorite of all time horror villain, and even a lot of those sequels I didn't think were necessary. And I still feel the same way for the Saw franchise. Again, I enjoyed the first few films. After that, for me, it felt like a lot of rinse and repeat. It felt like I just kept watching the same thing over again. And it doesn't take away anything from the films, whether or not you watch them individually. Were they good, not good? Again, I think every franchise, when you go for 11 films, you're going to have your high and low points. Some films are going to be better than others as far as sequels go, or part of a reboot or remake, whatever they're trying to do within the franchise. Again, depending upon the story, one's going to be better than the other. So you're not always going to have a hit when you're doing 11 films in a franchise. So again, I'm not excited to see it go. I'm not sad to see it go. I'm very impartial. Am I going to miss it? No, not really. I'm focusing on more of the new stuff that's been coming out. I'm focusing on more of the fresh ideas, new takes that are coming into the horror genre. Those are the ones I'm focused on. Saw 11, would I have seen it eventually? Yeah, I would have seen it eventually. It would not have been a film I would have been rushing out to see. Just like several of the sequels after the first few films, I just waited for them to eventually just come out. And whenever I got to them and watched them. Again, I'm more interested in the newer stuff as far as new ideas, new actors, new characters, all that, right? That's what I'm more excited about for the genre. So, not surprised to hear this. I'm a little surprised though that Lionsgate. It said down here. Let's go back down to the bottom of the article, because it's the individual that they're quoting, or the unnamed source that they're quoting, mentions here Lionsgate didn't have anyone to smooth over the disagreement. I'm a little surprised by that. Usually with such a large franchise for a studio that's making this kind of money, you would think you would have, I'll call it a handler, so to speak, that when disagreements like this do come up, there is somebody there to quickly pounce on it, put the fires out, make sure, disagreements get solved for the better of the studio, for the better of the project. But doesn't seem like that was the case. And again, I'm a little surprised that is the case, that Lionsgate didn't have someone there to do that and overseeing the overall IP. And maybe that's why this got out of hand. Maybe that's why it kind of turned in from a small fire to a wildfire that just couldn't be contained anymore. And then, as it mentioned at the end of the article, the person was quoted as saying greed and ego won. Well, that's typically what happens. I think typically when franchises like this are making that kind of money and people feel like their say is more important than the other individual that's involved. They mentioned that people were putting up roadblocks. One person was putting up a roadblock, one person wanted to plow through, and they weren't gonna meet in the middle on any circumstance. So in that case, what do? Either you get rid of everybody and bring somebody else in, but depending upon involvement, depending upon how much money has already been invested, and now you've pushed out the film's date by another year. At some point, I think somebody might say, let's just cut our losses. We're not moving forward with this. It's over. Let's call it a day. And it could be very well what's happening here. Unless somebody else steps in and, as the article mentions, buys this up, which I can't imagine Lionsgate selling the IP to somebody else just based on the fact of how much money it makes them. And they could come out with think about just from a physical media perspective. They could come out with special editions, anniversary editions from a physical media, streaming, licensing, and all that comes with it. And eventually, if they do decide to reboot it, they're the ones that have been involved since the beginning. So if they do a hard reboot, restart of the entire thing, they already know this has made them money. How are they going to tweak it? The other side of that coin is, hey, we don't want this headache anymore. Let somebody else deal with it. We've made our money, and we've pretty much, you can't get water from a rock at this point. Let another studio try it, sell the IP. Honestly, in my opinion, I'd say unless you're going to go down the physical media route with all these anniversary editions and eventually come back and try to do a hard reboot, which is going to be a risk, because you're going to have a hard comparison between a hard reboot and all the previous films that have been done, all the actors that may have played those parts. It may not be as successful, so maybe it is time to just close the book, sell it off, and move on. So Anyways, that's gonna do it for this horror news update. Saw 11 could be just done for, canceled. We're not gonna get it, and the overall franchise may be done for. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let us know what you think about this news. Are you a fan of the Saw franchise? Were you looking forward to Saw 11, or are you like me? You're kind of just impartial. You don't really, it doesn't affect you either way. Yeah, again, that's where I stand. So if you haven't done so already, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, we'll see you at the next one. Peace.